Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Good to have you here. We're going to go straight to the phones tonight so you guys can exercise your right to free speech and weigh in on this conversation about the Universal Ostrich Farm and the CFIA ordered Cull out there. A lot of new developments involving a girl who has survived the avian flu H5N1 variant, speaking out at the farm. We have RFK Jr. and his letter to the CFIA, and we have perception management and the politics surrounding all of this, as well as explaining bird brains and what happens to them once a bird becomes infected with the H5N1 variant of bird flu. But you guys get to help the conversation along tonight, so get those dialing fingers ready, because when we come back on the other side, you get to join the conversation.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so just to bring you up to date, RFK Jr. yesterday sent a letter to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Highly political, I would say. I'm going to have a few things to say about that tonight. Yes, I will be editorializing a bit, and so will you, because you get to join in on the conversation. We also have this, I believe she's 13 years old. She made an appearance out at the Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, British Columbia. And she, along with her family, conveyed their thoughts on what should be happening with these ostriches. So we have all of that in the mix tonight, and I'm going to rely on you guys to help move this conversation along by having you call in at this number. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Okay, so as I say, this young girl, teen, and I don't think they've released her name, even though they've got their faces, the faces of all the family members in these interviews. They did a news conference out at the farm a little earlier today. And this is a teen who is confirmed to have contracted H5N1, that variant of bird flu, and survived. So this is, I believe, the only case of H5N1 bird flu transmitted to a human in Canada, and the only survivor. So we're going to share this with you. And we've got, I believe, John from Alberta is joining us on the line. Hello, John. How are you tonight, sir?
Well, good evening, Maverick people. The old, reliable boots on the ground, Remby John, Western Canada. How are you tonight, sir?
Well, I'm okay. Before you and I kind of kick things off here tonight with our phone-in segment, which is all show long, I'm going to run a bit of this clip from this news conference and Q&A. This is actually a Q&A session with the media at the scene in Edgewood, British Columbia, Universal Ostrich Farm. I don't know if you should be able to hear this, I think, John, on your phone when I run this. Let me share this with everybody, and then we can begin the conversation on tonight's feature topic.
Also mentioned Urban Safari Rescue Society, which our oldest daughter, Desiree, was volunteering there.
What was the
So they were trying to figure out at this point, or they were asking, how did she contract bird flu? The answer is they think that she may have contracted it from a dog, a family dog, pet. And they described what happened to the dog. The dog died and had an enlarged brain, a swollen brain. They did an autopsy on the dog, but they weren't 100% able to confirm exactly how the girl contracted the virus. Who else is on the line with us now?
The good old Dragon.
Hey, Dragon from Montreal. Welcome back, sir. Let's let a little of this clip roll.
dog ill with, and has an autopsy been done on that dog?
The autopsy was done, and it had inflammation in the brain, and it had multiple seizures.
Did that sound like bird flu at all?
No.
Can you give us a little bit more
Yes,
detail
it
on
is.
when you were caring for the dog and-
I looked it up.
October
And,
26th is when we had gotten
That
the dog,
definitely is.
the puppy, and it was put down November 9th, I believe. And we allowed it.
Yeah, when we took on the dog itself, we were asked by rescue to take it because it was having seizures and the owner couldn't take it anymore. She was having a hard time managing the dog in her household. We took it on. We were told by the vet, oh yeah, it's only seizures, it's this. They gave medications, they did everything they could. We handed it over to the CDC at the time. They wanted to just double check everything, make sure there's no issues. They found that there was an issue with his brain, and they said at that point, because of the seizures and his inflammation on the brain, that's why they put it down.
Hang on, just a moment. I need to
To be clear, how did
fix
they-
this.
When did the dog die in relation to
This
Jocelyn?
always gets difficult when I.
Jocelyn started to feel
So they
sick
did
on
name
her
the girl.
birthday, which was November 2nd.
Hang on, I need to fix this thing. Just hang on. I need to fix this. My apologies. Let me just recue this, guys. Are you still there? Okay, let me bring you up. No, hang on. Okay, just bear with me while I fix the feed. I do apologize. Frustrating. Yeah, I am. Just hang on. I'm gonna run a promo. I'm gonna fix this thing. Just
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
okay. I'm not sure if I have this or not. Can you guys hear me okay? Do I sound better? Okay. Okay. All right, now I need to, okay, I fixed the audio. Now I got to fix this video feed thing that was giving us some grief here. So let me get this cue back up. Almost ready to go here, folks. Okay. All right, let me run one more. I'm sorry, folks. Let me just run one more transition and then we'll be right back in business. Hang on just a second.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right. My apologies for the technical problems. Computer just not cooperating. But I think I'll roll it back so it's earlier in the thing, and then we'll make sure we get what we need. And it just did it again. For crying out loud. One more moment. It's not very beautiful, John. Okay, I'll bring it up.
And everyone on the chat are like, no worry, Rick.
Let's see if we can get some audio with this now.
Saying
From-
that's all you're doing is one test, and we're gonna did blood tests. They did. There's I think.
All right.
Not just take a test. And
Let's just let it roll.
That's all you're doing is one test.
It's not
and
properly cued,
we're
but
gonna base it off that.
whatever.
While she was in the hospital, Megan, myself, Desiree, and Jocelyn had every other day we had to have the test done.
Until
They were
it
taking-
was negative.
Yeah, she couldn't come off her meds. She couldn't come off the machines until they showed complete negativity on all her tests.
And was that PCR testing, are you aware?
Yes.
That was PCR testing. They did blood tests. They did, there's, I think, 3 tests altogether they were doing because they did oxygen. So they took a swab from her throat through the ventilator. They did the PCR test, and then they also did the blood test to verify. They did multiple tests to verify the same conclusion. They should be doing the same thing here.
Did you guys ever ask for a second opinion? Because that's what is always, people always say, you should get a second opinion.
We were approached by a company in the UK that offered, if the government would pay for it, they offered to do the test as a secondary test. And we had them do it, and they did confirm without the government having any say. They paid for it, but they didn't get a say as to what they did. And they did do a confirmation that, yes, this was the H5N1.
So you suspect the puppy may be a source, but what were the doctors telling you that they can't say publicly, that they might have said privately to you guys? Is there anything that you can share?
We were actually told that the virus strain that she had was from geese, and it was a strain that they found in Edmonton. So my question to the CFIA would be, if she got it from geese in Edmonton, why are you not in all over Canada, rounding up every single goose and culling them instead?
And you haven't been allowed.
At what point, if they come here, I'd like to ask them why that is.
Because they don't call wild.
No.
At what point the antibodies were tested?
Throughout.
And when did they start it?
Well,
throughout
did it again.
her hospital stay, and also not even a month ago.
You can't
we
cull
did blood
wild
work,
birds.
and it for the research for the biobank.
Is it always done at Children's Hospital?
Yes.
Okay.
What would you like to say to Prime Minister?
Okay, let's just stop that for a moment while I re-cue it. Okay, there we go. It gets complicated when we have the phone system on.
They,
Still there.
at a certain point, we couldn't take her home until they agreed to take care of her meds. She's had seizures. We've had to have her on seizure meds. We have rescue meds that one of us has to have on us at all times while we're gone. She has a set in her bag for at school. We've had to have people specially trained to take care of her meds at school.
There's actually 5 staff member at her school trained in her rescue med.
Oh, wow.
I have a question, or not a question, but a comment. So they were doing not just the PCR test, they did blood. They did other testing.
Yeah.
Not just the controversial PCR test, which we're running off here from December.
Yep.
If the Canadian people wish to help you in your cause, how can we help you? How can we find you? Because it seems like if you guys are struggling, there's probably a lot of people who'd love to help you.
We would love to help.
How can we help you? Is there an email? Is there
Honestly,
a donation site?
The email for e-transfer would be megs1baby@msn.com.
And we'll post that. We'll make sure that's
Yeah,
posted.
if
on
you
our
leave
stuff.
us that.
If anybody wants to help,
Yeah.
that would be lovely.
We have never asked for help. We are
Our
family
pride.
helps us the best we can, and we make it work.
We struggled for the 2 months that she was in the hospital.
Yeah, we've learned that you can't rely on anybody, and the people you can rely on will be there just out of the blue for you.
as you guys are here for us, and we thank you.
And we want to thank you and whoever else donated to help us get up here, and for the hotel that you guys surprised us.
Somewhere to stay out of nowhere. Well, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thanks very much. Katie, did you want to talk here on this tailgate?
On this tailgate.
I got one more small question.
Go ahead.
How is
Okay. Guys, you go. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, Rimby John.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the clown show. I just didn't think it could get any more of a clown show. I didn't think this thing could get any lower with integrity-wise. It doesn't have any integrity, thankfully, with your investigative reporting, Rick. But this 13-year-old girl that they are now, it appears to be using as a propaganda media money-raising outfit. Like, I feel very bad for this girl. She obviously is still in recovery. I think they're just using her as a money-making pawn on side of this ostrich clown show. Like, what, am I off base there, Dragon?
Dragon? Are you there, Dragon? No response from Dragon.
Is it my
Hold
turn
on, I
off?
think
Is it okay?
There you are.
That's my fault. So I think I don't know if you're right on this one. It's possible. But from what I was looking at, you know that she was basically diagnosed at the same time or in the same era of time where the Ostrich Farm been diagnosed with the problem. So it's kind of weird, don't you think?
Not necessarily. If you've got an outbreak, it's becoming more prevalent at that particular time, so probably not that unusual. It would be more normal, I would say, if the virus is circulating for someone to contract it at a time when you have outbreaks. But I took a look online, different sources, government websites, to see if we have outbreaks right now. We do. In fact, there's one not very far from where I'm sitting tonight here in Ontario. There's a bird flu outbreak at a poultry facility. It's, an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, though, guys, as a guy who's worked in media, as a general assignment reporter, covering various beats at times, automotive, agriculture, health beats, doesn't matter. One thing I've never, ever done as a reporter in all the years that I've been involved in media, over 30 years, I've never once paid for an interview. Not even one time. And the reason I don't do that is because as soon as you offer up money, it influences the responses that you get. So I don't do that. I don't pay for interviews. What have we got going on here now? These folks have been brought out to the farm. They've obviously been contacted and given an opportunity to come and join this conversation. By whom exactly there, I don't know, but obviously that this organization, this network, this group is paying them. They're paying for their hotel. They're paying for their, their expenses, and they're now involving them in this gigantic fundraising operation they have ongoing out there. And the family, when the girl fell ill, obviously you can tell they're not, from what they're saying, they're not well off. They struggled financially. And now they're becoming involved in this giant fundraising thing. So I can't imagine that isn't having some influence over what they're saying and doing. Maybe not, but at least, and they're not hiding it at all. They're basically being transparent, but makes me a little uncomfortable. That's me.
Well, just
Yeah,
Rick.
no wonder too.
Well, Rick, to me and Dragon, it just smells of a big scam con job to me. I mean, to me, they're mixing apples and oranges. I feel very badly, and pray for this girl that she gets healthy. But she's 13 years old, and it appears to me her parents are using her as a money making propaganda tool. And why would you be taking? It's almost like child abuse to me, or abuse. Why would you be taking your daughter out to a quarantined farm that those animals could be culled at any time and possibly expose her to something else? I think that's very foolish on behalf of the parents, but I think it's all generated by money, money.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to make accusations against anybody. Like, I'm just saying that money does influence things. So, I mean, I just can't imagine that they would invite these folks out to the farm to make comment on this and accept the hotel room, accept the invitation to, and that was Colin Big Bear, one of the main organizers out there, who's saying, how can we help you? Make sure you get your fundraising information out there, which, we shared it there as well, but I'm just trying to be balanced and fair, and this is part of the story, so I'm showing you exactly what's happened out there. And I just can't imagine they're going to stand up there and say, yeah, we think they should go ahead with the call after accepting this assistance, right? Which I'm sure that they are in need, but to what level and how much influence does that have over what they now say? So,
well, Rick and Dragon, are there any authorized, properly veterinarians that are on site there, like a proper trained British Columbia or veterinarian? And also, is there a second question? Is there anybody there as an observer from this Health Canada Agricultural Agency? This thing is just going down a one big scam rabbit hole con job to me. I don't know.
Actually, John, you're picking up on something that it sort of segues into another thing that I think we should maybe look at tonight. And that's like, is this place actually safe? It is not being, there are no CFIA inspectors on site. Occasionally we've had RCMP show up with a liaison officer to speak with the protesters. There's this mixed messaging that keeps coming out as well from the protesters. Okay. And it's like they want police to surveil and catch the people that have apparently shot these ostriches. And they want police to investigate that, but they don't want police at the same time. Well, here, I'll explain. Look, first of all, let's find the maybe we'll find the pictures of the. I mean, you know what I'm talking about with the shot rooster and the hen, right?
Well, wasn't there a road rage incident, Rick, of a truck or something outside the farm?
That's another aspect to this, yes. And so I guess we should walk through.
And I just thought to bring it up because to me that's important.
Yes, it is, and I do have some information about that too. And the bottom line is, and this is my view, there's no way this is a safe place, especially not for families, not for children. But that's what we have out there as part of this protest. Is we have kids, we have families camping, and while all that's going on, we have dead birds. Okay, so I'll show you the dead birds in a moment, but here's one of the streamers, Mocha Berzergan. I'm not probably pronouncing his last name right. He used to work for Rebel News. Now he's sort of doing his own thing. And then Jim Kerr. Oh my, I lost it. As soon as I moved to that tab, the computer messed up again. And we lost the. When we do the phone system, everything gets messed up. Who's on the phone with us now? Who's there?
It's Kitty. How's it going?
Well, hello. Oh, hang on a second. Okay, how are you tonight, Kitty? Long time no talk to.
Oh, not too bad. I have to say this situation with the birds has really it's depressing in a way. It's not that none of us have feelings. It's never easy doing the right thing.
That's true.
And
yeah, especially.
And I gotta tell you, you might think I'm nuts, but I think the way it looks. You made a good point when you said, "Where's the inspection agency?" Now, put the question on its head. Where are they? If this was such a terribly serious situation, you would think that they would not be allowing people to go on the property.
Well, actually, Kitty, there is a quarantine order in effect there. I don't think it's being properly respected.
Well, we've seen the government in action. And like I say, call me nuts, but I really do think that the government, in a way, is like sitting on their hands, eh?
Well, that's because of the court stay that the farm proceeded with. They hired a lawyer to delay this, and they were successful in getting a delay so that they could then have their trial to try and stop the cull. As a result of that court challenge, this thing has been delayed 5 months. It's not that the CFIA didn't want to proceed. They did. They've been trying to, but because they've given the farm owner due process, there was nothing they could do because it's been tied up in the courts by the farm owners. And now, they've got a political situation on their hands out there because you have all these protesters who are vowing to stand off against the police, surround the farm. That's what the farm owner has asked them to do. They've got these protesters have set up surveillance. They have cameras everywhere. If the cops show up, they've made it clear they've said they're not going to let them kill the birds.
Well, you see, I have nightmare visions popping in my brain as you're talking, and I'm thinking, okay, imagine this: a boarding stables owner boards out for 49 horses, and one of them gets equine disease or the equivalent, right? Then you're going to have 49 owners all squawking about their independent rights.
Well,
it seems to me this is a test case. You see, and it really bothers me because, again, I am an animal lover. Okay, that's why I'm not a farmer. Because I would give them names and they would be my pets, and dinner would be walking around for the next 10 years. I don't have a problem with that, Yes. But I am a hunter, but it's hard to differentiate. I couldn't be a farmer.
Yeah.
Hunting, it's a different mindset. You're going for dinner, and if you don't get it, you don't eat.
So let me ask you, Kitty, and you've just touched on something very important. When you go hunting, the game that you shoot is healthy and in the wild. Does that animal have rights? Does it have a right to life? When you shoot it, are you murdering that animal?
No.
Right.
And I can say that because, I was taught the old-fashioned way. Never shoot unless you plan to eat it. It was ingrained into my poor brain. I mean, I first started shooting pop cans. Well, they were bottles back then. They weren't cans. Off a fence post when I was 3. So I don't remember a time where, that doesn't sound very good, does it? Hi, YouTube, family friendly show, YouTube. But it's in my mind, speaking only for me. When I go hunting, it's a mindset of okay, I'm gonna go out and get dinner and get it all dressed up and everything.
Well,
now,
Rick, can I interject? 2 questions for you. The 69 birds that died of this flu, were there any? Brian out had a good question the other night. Were there any autopsies done on a few of them? Where were they buried? Were they disposed of properly? and incinerated. And furthermore, when I had my grain farm in Rimby, I had hunters come in, and my only condition to let them hunt on my property was, gentlemen and ladies, please use the entire animal. The entire animal. Don't just skin it and toss it in the ditch. If you're going to use the entire animal, then I have no issue with you hunting on my property, but be respectful of my uncombined grain swaths or hay. And I never, ever, Rick, ever had an issue with any hunters. They were always very respectful and very grateful. And we've got a lot of them around the Red Deer area. You know?
Yeah, well, it's let's steer back into this particular issue here, though. We're kind of veering off into the hunting thing. I just wanted to establish that animals do not actually have rights under our Constitution, under our laws. They don't have rights because we eat them. Okay, even when you go hunting or if it's agriculture, they don't have rights. But we do have laws and rules to protect animals by limiting the rights of people. But at the same time, we also respect property rights. And in this case, that's why this has been delayed. It's because our society, our system has given the farm owners at Universal Ostrich Farm due process. We've said, yes, you have property rights, and the property is the ostriches. The ostriches don't have rights. The farmer does, because the farmer owns the ostriches. They are property. They're livestock.
Earl, for God's sake.
Right? That's under the legal system. That's the way it works. But you can't then just be cruel to animals. We have laws in place. I'm just explaining how the system works, right? So you can't just abuse an animal. If you do that, you'll be charged because we have laws in place to restrict what you're allowed to do. You can't just go out and start beating a dog, right, with a stick.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be charged with a law because we're restricting what your rights are. We as a society do that in order to protect the animals.
But Rick, in fairness, prior to the pandemic of 2020, were they not operating this farm basically like a cattle buffalo farm where they were selling the ostriches for meat, and then they did the 180 flip around into a new research facility? None of them, I don't believe, have any medical accreditation, veterinarian, biotech, anything. It appears to me it's not a safe, proper medical science facility, and they did the 180 spin around, I think, for some big government hand. What'd you say that contract was, 13 mil?
Yeah, that they didn't get the 13 million, but they were involved with that company that got a $13 million grant. And then, of course, they would have been paid, I think, as part of their contract with that company, as portion of that money over time for what they were providing as part of that program. So, but then they got hit with the bird flu, and so not all of that was realized. Somebody else just joined us on the line, and I'm actually going to bring up something else here on the screen showing that, yeah, they were involved in using the ostriches for food and also pet food. So I'll show you that in a second. Oops, hang on. There we are. I'm back. Who else just joined us on the line?
It's Isabel, as usual.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Not too bad. How is everybody?
Great.
All good.
Good. My husband, when my husband was alive, he was a hunter. Ducks, deer. And his theory and how he taught my children, my boys, to hunt, you only killed what you needed. And everything that they killed was done humanely. He made darn sure that when he shot a deer, it went down. It didn't go off into the woods hurt. So it was a clean shot. But people have different views on this. Hunters don't go, and this is what really gets me with the government sometimes and all of this stuff with the farms and everything. Hunters can only hunt at certain times of the year, and they can only get the amount that they have tags for.
Yeah, we're kind of getting into the hunting thing. I kind of want to focus on the bird flu and the farm, if we could.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and then I have to run. I was really shocked that that 13-year-old girl was there.
Yeah.
They're really playing on the heartstrings. They really
yeah.
are.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
true.
That's true.
And I was shocked today when I saw that little video that Jim Kerr put on, and I thought, oh, come on. Now you're pushing a 13-year-old up front. They had a young boy the other day too. And I
Yeah.
think he was maybe 12.
Yeah, just
I'm
to,
saying, what is this?
just
You're-
and just to
you're using
backtrack a
kids?
little bit here, Isabel, and then I'm going to bring it back to you. Just these pictures that you're seeing on the screen here, folks. This is this is the farm. This is part of what they've been involved with. Another company that they set up called Bizarre Bites, pet food and other products made from ostrich products. They've got stuff here that they use for tick spray and pet care and big ostrich bones for Fido to chew on and so on. So this is just one of the things that they were using. And there's ostrich meat in bags for the dogs.
But these are pets, right?
Yeah, right.
Right?
They were until 2020, or they weren't before 2020. Then something changed, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you go to the butcher
There's
and you get
ostrich in a
bones
bowl.
for your dog.
There's
This is no different.
yeah, there's Fido just about to eat his ostrich dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, let's get real. It's a farm, and it's okay. But let's not kid ourselves. What's really going on here, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
this
Rick,
isn't a
did you
petting
get Cosmo?
zoo.
Sorry, John.
Rick, did you
Go
get
ahead, John.
Cosmo a pig's ear there, Rick, at the pet store? A dog owner will get that joke.
Yeah, my dogs can't eat those. But yeah.
So anyway, back to you, Isabel. I just wanted to say, tie that together.
Well, and this is the thing. Now they're getting to the point where it's not enough of the propaganda. Now we got to push kids up front. This is really getting to me. This is abuse as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's
like they're pushing the envelope. They're pushing and pushing to see how far they can get away with.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when I saw that the other day, first the little boy, now the girl, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. You guys are using these people. These people are truly believing what they're thinking with their heart. You're not going to go do this to a farmer that's standing with his cows. We all know what cows are for. We all know what chickens are for. And they're trying to overwash this with the ostriches.
Yeah.
And they've said it so many times. They were slaughtering these for food. Now all of a sudden they're pets.
It's
come on.
Political, man. That's what this
Oh,
is.
yeah. Yeah, and I can see where this is going to go. They're going to push
And
till there's going to be an uprising and somebody's going to get hurt.
And just to warn everybody, I'm about to put the pictures of one of these dead birds up on the screen. So if you're squeamish, viewer discretion advised. Just going to share these with you because I was asking, where's the carcass? Yesterday,
Yeah, because they weren't showing us.
Yeah, now we have a carcass that they say was shot. So we'll share these images with you now. But again, before I enlarge them, just be forewarned. If you're squeamish, it's a dead bird. Okay, it's not. That's what it is. I ate chicken for dinner. Just to put it in perspective. Okay. I did.
Well, I've seen my son's deer hanging in his garage when he's skinning it, so I'm good.
So they're saying this bird was shot. They're saying this bird was shot from above. And then they keep talking about this drone that's flying overhead. I think the drone is probably police, frankly, because that's what all the police services have drones now. So they have a drone flying around, I think, just keeping an eye on the place. And we'll get to that in a moment. But they say this bird was shot from above. And then they say there was an exit wound through the neck. When I look, though, at this, I don't think that there's no way the thing was shot with a drone, because you'd have to mount a gun and then you'd hear it, and a drone would from the kickback, as you know, Kitty, from hunting, right? You've got kickback is going to do crazy things to the drone. And then look at the neck. You see, that's like a slit.
Yeah.
I just,
If that was shot with anything, that would, because when you shoot something, it goes in small and comes out big. And they're trying to say this was shot from above.
makes no sense. And the other
No.
thing,
Rick, what
Katie-
you're describing, is something like Sean Connery would be so proud of playing 007 there. Holy crap. He'd be sitting there in miniature on top of the drone with his little gun and everything. And you know, like, it just doesn't work. I don't think we have something like that.
and
like Rick, what's the money count at now?
I don't know, John. I
money
haven't
count.
looked, but I have a question for Kitty. You're a hunter, and so I looked this up because I don't hunt, but I know a little bit about firearms, a little.
Oh, it's fun.
Tiny bit. But if you were going to, if you were going to hunt an ostrich or shoot an ostrich, especially in the dark, because this happened in the middle of the night, would you
They got a
would
good
you aim
shot.
for the head, that tiny little head, or would you aim for the body and vital organs?
Well, okay. Speaking of someone that used to how shall we say this on YouTube, unalive my own chickens.
Mhm.
Okay, there's a thing that they do after their heads are
They run
nicely
around.
removed.
Yeah,
they
run around.
do. They run around. Can you imagine that happening with an ostrich? Not me. No, it would be the main body part.
Yeah, I would.
Don't you?
I
Wouldn't you shoot
I
for
look
the
it up.
lung area, Kitty?
Yeah, if you go hunting, right?
Can you imagine me running after an ostrich without a head? That would just.
But the point is,
I can just see the memes now.
The point
Like,
is, we've
oh
got
my God.
apparently they say 2 dead ostriches, both of them shot in the head. And if you're hunting, if you're shooting from, like, say, outside the pen, or if you snuck on the property and then you take aim, you pop it in the head. No, I would, you would aim for the body. Now, if you're in the pen, to me, this looks like it has to have been done by somebody who got very close to the ostrich. And if it was shot in the head, that's done like right next to the bird, very close. But even then, like, I don't know, something's not quite right here.
Well, there is one word which I thought of, and that's somebody with these capabilities, someone of sniper capabilities.
Yeah,
because in
the head, middle of the night, 2 birds. Here's the larger point. This place is not safe. What do we have here now? We have a potential biohazard identified by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, confirmed that bird flu has been present on the site. We have birds that have been injected with a synthetic COVID antigen to stimulate immune response to COVID-19. We now have very agitated protesters and neighbors who don't like them because they're upset. We have people who are sort of upset and counter protesting in various ways. We have a neighbor accused of yesterday driving erratically and almost running into vehicles, and police being called to the scene because of this confrontation that was escalated.
That was the Karen.
Right. So I mean, so you've got that thing going on. We can get to that in a moment. And then you've got 2 birds shot. So you definitely have guns on site, and they're telling people that this is a fun, safe place to bring your family and your kids to be on bouncy castles. Yeah. And to exacerbate the danger, these shots are being fired at night. Whoever is doing it, whether it's a protester, trying to martyr one of the birds, or whether it's somebody sneaking onto the property to shoot, regardless, if these birds were shot, this is happening just a short distance from where people are sleeping at night, and it's happening in the dark. Do you know how dangerous that is?
You remember I said to you the other day, that guy that made that little snippet with Jim Kerr, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
That's stuck in my mind. And now I'm going to ask Kitty, because I know with my son's hunting, if you shot the ostrich, if you got it to stand still long enough to shoot it, first of all, okay.
Yeah.
You would have to have even up close, you see how these things move the minute people go near them. They just run all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm like, so how do you pick a bird to stand still long enough for one shot? If you shot it like that, would you not blow its head off completely?
I'm just going to run a little clip from Jim Kerr here.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Katie, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know. That's a good question. I just can't get the picture out of my brain of this ostrich running around without its head because I know it's safe.
I can
gonna
tell
ask
you guys
one question. I'm just gonna ask this question: was the drone Ukrainian? Because the Ukrainian drone are known to shoot in the dark and have some mountain guns. So probably Mike Pickerick could help us here.
Yes, well, they did. Those drones are very sophisticated, high end. That is for sure. But here's Jim Carrick talking about that incident involving the neighbor that he alleges was driving erratically and almost struck other vehicles. Now, I saw the video that he originally posted, which was part of a live stream, and then he deleted it. And just the fact that he deleted that video raises concerns for me, and he addresses it here, and then I'm just going to comment and then throw it back to you guys.
There was a headline last night in one of the articles, and it said that the police were here checking up or ensuring that there was no criminal activity. Interesting, right? Last night. That happened, oh gosh, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, they're really monitoring us close because at 2 o'clock in the morning, somehow, great big drone flying over and one of the hens ended up dead. Or sorry. No, it was a rooster. It was a male ostrich. It seems like either that headline is extremely misleading, or maybe you just didn't see what you just saw, because that's the way it is here. We've determined to do this peacefully. We're not going to take arms with them. We're gonna fight them with the numbers that give a crap about peace, give a crap about life. So if you do, help us out. Keep sharing it out. It's amazing. There was certainly an ostrich last night that was shot. There was an incident earlier today where somebody was driving very recklessly. It wasn't one of our people. It was somebody, that lives in the area. And we ended up following out, and I did a live on it. But I shouldn't have, so I deleted it. But if I might have already said that on this live. Okay, I'm done, guys. Hey, thank you. UniversalOstrichFarms.com.
Yeah, because he said earlier in the video, I shouldn't really have put that up because it didn't really fit our story. That's what it is. He doesn't want that out there because he said they don't want people to feel like it's an unsafe place to be, because it is an unsafe place to be. I've covered a lot of strikes. I've seen where things escalate and people's emotions get the better of them. I've seen people get run over at picket lines. Right? This is not a place for kids. Now you've got people shot, and this is disingenuous, frankly. And I'm going to speak up about it because it is dangerous. And what he's doing here it's just not sincere. He is saying, because on the one hand, and it's hypocritical, it's double speak. They're saying they were demanding that police investigate and keep the place safe because of the birds that got shot. So they want someone held accountable for that. And they say they want an investigation. So then police yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, they said that they were surveilling the place to monitoring it for any possible criminal activity. But then they turn around and say, well, why are you monitoring the place for criminal activity? We're not criminals. They're just automatically assuming that they're just monitoring them. No, I would say police say they're monitoring the place for any kind of criminal activity. And if Jim Kerr and those protesters genuinely want surveillance and they want someone to be held accountable in an investigation, they should welcome police surveilling them, keeping an eye on the place. They should say, thank you for coming and keeping an eye on the farm to keep everyone here safe. We don't want any criminal activity. But they don't want police there monitoring for criminal activity. Because why? Because they're there to
for that
stand
very
off.
reason.
They're there to stand off against the police. They're opposed to police. They don't want police there. They don't really want proper surveillance. They don't want the police looking at the place at all. So what does that?
No, they don't want to be watched. They don't want to be watched.
No, they don't. because they're the
Well,
ones.
where does it stand right now? It stands where apparently the birds have to be tested first, or they just have to be tested.
No, only if they go to the local landfill. The local landfill is saying that actually the municipal council is saying it's not a municipality, but the local council says we're not going to let them put them in the landfill site unless you test them first. But the CFIA says they don't care. They're going to go ahead with the call. That is not going to stop this. The federal government.
Who's going to blink now?
Well, that's what it's coming down to. This is why it's delayed, right? Because you have a political situation here, and it is political. It's not about the birds anymore. It's about the politics.
No, this was the whole purpose.
Yeah.
This was the
There
whole
was a line in Star Trek. It said, "For the good of the many, for the few."
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Few or the one. Yeah.
Yeah, but guys, it just thinks of a big scam. It's just a big money scam. I wonder how much money they waste with that 13-year-old girl.
Too. It's more than that. You're right, John. It is that, but it's more than that. It's about the politics. It's about standing up to the government. It's about opposing the government. It's about undermining trust in government. It's about disrupting and detoothing, neutering our institutions, making the government so that they can't do anything anymore.
So something could happen at any time. Is that right?
Yeah, they could come in at any time and do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rick, he's making a good point about the political stance on it, because don't forget that RFK have asked the FCAA not to call them for some reason. So why is the U.S. government now basically involved into this? Why?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because that never happened in our history, I believe.
I have a lot to say about that, but you guys go ahead.
Yeah, isn't he the head of health or something?
It's called foreign interference by Mr. Orange Orangutan.
It is.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I think there's a John here who just said it.
Yeah, because I like RFK. He's good. And that's a really good question. Why is he? Since when? But that hasn't happened to my recollection. Ever.
Oh, I have thought about this a lot since this has happened.
Well, the United States of America, they have no jurisdiction in Canada, period, let alone BC, Alberta, or anywhere else. They have no jurisdiction, period.
That's right.
Should mind their own business. JFK, mind your own business, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I like what he's doing in the States, but stay in the States. Leave us alone. We're Canada.
It's again, disingenuous. It is hypocritical. It's like hypocrisy at its finest coming from RFK Jr. I'll tell you why.
Yeah, that was scary when I heard that. I thought, wait a minute,
I've got
you're sticking your nose more in our business here.
Yeah. And
what is it that makes them think that they can do this? That's what I'd like to know.
You could argue that this is political advocacy, but it isn't. It's entirely political, and it is foreign interference and meddling in our politics. And RFK Jr., in his position as the head of HHS in the States, his primary responsibility is public health and science. But what he has done here is he's breached his duty and has put politics ahead of public health and science. If this was just about the science, the proper protocol would have been to be first, contact the CFIA, have a private conversation, and then issue a letter, if you so choose, privately to deal with the science, because that is a highly charged political situation that he is obviously aware of. But instead of that route being taken, what RFK Jr. has done is he has been approached by these protesters, or at least
they're familiar with each other, and they are part of a network where these people have had a past relationship. Some of them from Kyle Kemper, Justin Trudeau's brother, to other activists, and it goes right back into the heart of this protest. So they all know each other, and they're part of a network. So they've gone to him and they've said,
Maverick.
yes. So they've asked him to get involved, and he said he would. And then they put him on a radio show out of New York. And if you go back to that interview, that video that I ran earlier, I won't cue the clip up, but Katie, who is the daughter of Karen, the co-owner of the farm, is seen in this circle of where they have them meeting every night. And she's on video and she talks about how she was coordinating the interview between the New York radio host and RFK Jr. And so she's been talking to RFK Jr. directly. And so he already had a preformed opinion about this anyway, because he's on record prior to all of this, even prior to becoming the head of HHS, as saying he is opposed to culls and he wants bird flu to just run its course. He doesn't want culls at all in these poultry operations. He just wants to let the birds die. He wants to just let the virus rip. That's his position. That was his position long before any of this. So he comes into this with a certain point of view.
Oh,
I
see.
So then they get him involved. They put him on this radio show. She's helping to coordinate the interviews. They ask him to write a letter to the CFIA. So he says, I will. Jim Kerr acknowledges that and then he says, true to his word, he said he would write a letter, and he did. You can find it in his social media posts. So then he phones the CFIA after doing the radio interviews, establishing that he already has this preset position on the issue anyway. Then he consults with the head of the CFIA, not respecting really what the CFIA, our politics or our policies or anything. And he has this private conversation, but then issues the letter. But what does he do with the letter? He doesn't just send it to CFIA. He sends it also to the protesters so they can publish it online. So it becomes a political tool. So he's injecting himself into the protest through the letter, even though in the letter he's asking for the federal government and the CFIA to consider not culling the birds so that they can do more collaborative research. But this is disingenuous in itself, and I'll tell you why. It's because the Trump administration, even since coming into office, has cut funding for this kind of research through the NIH and the CDC. They've been purging those agencies, lessening their ability to research exactly this kind of antibody research. Not only that, it's hypocritical because they are currently engaged in a number of culls on the U.S. side of the border. He has done nothing to change the FDA policies down there, the Department of Agriculture. None of that has changed even since the Biden administration. They've just been proceeding with massive culls at poultry operations even since Trump came back into power. And there have been quite a few of them since. There was a massive one out in California involving a bunch of ducks. There's a big one going on right now with some chickens. I've got another one, I think, out of Pennsylvania. I've got video that I could run. So this has been ongoing even with him there. So he's done nothing to stop it on his side. But for some reason, this one's different. It's the ostriches and it's Canada, and he's involving himself in this, and we have to stop this one. But he's got a predisposed position on this. This is political. This is challenging as a result of this letter, Canadian sovereignty, the sovereignty and the authority of our government, of the CFIA. It's a letter that really now throws a monkey wrench into everything. It complicates diplomatically and on the ground what is going on with this protest in BC because of his involvement now, along with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who also signs this letter. but it's not about the science. If it was just about the science, the proper protocol for this kind of procedure would be to have a letter issued and just deal with the science quietly, not in a political way, not putting it out in front of the media as part of a protest. And it's irresponsible for him to do this. I would say he should resign for having done this, because he is actually putting lives at risk. He's making things worse. He is tasked with the responsibility of keeping the public safe. He's tasked with not just public health safety, but the safety of people in general. And by issuing this letter, knowing full well that you've got gunplay out there, you have a biohazard that's been established by another government agency in Canada, establishing that there is the possibility that there's bird flu on site. He is now inflaming the situation, emboldening the protesters who are asking for more people to go to the protest site. He knows that this will potentially bring more and more people out, putting more and more people in danger, not just in Canada, but also in the United States, because if this does result in further spread of the disease, that can go all the way back to the United States. He should be collaborating, not just on research, but also on mitigation with our government, our agencies. And I'll tell you this, it's also hypocritical, because we were cooperating more with the US agencies before, but because of these cutbacks and because of what the Trump administration does, they've pulled back from cooperating with other governments on this kind of research and mitigation. They're pulling back. It's America first and America back in behind American borders. They're not collaborating as much with other governments around the world, including Canada. And now, but this one's different for some reason, because it's political.
Wow. Well, Rick, JFC is good at one thing. Didn't he run down that bear in the middle of the road over top of his car and then load it up and dump it in the New York Park? And what about this quack? What about this quack university, Ostrich University in China, Japan? Isn't that guy a bit of a whack job, that university over there doing the testing?
Well, his research doesn't seem to stand up to scrutiny, because he doesn't have double peer-reviewed, double-blind studies. He's very small sample groups, and then where they published the results of this research, it seems to be in journals where you can pay to have things published, so it appears as though you have legitimacy. But then what they're really relying on for credibility is media that had provided coverage, especially since the pandemic, into the antibody research that they say that they were conducting, so that they got a lot of ink during the pandemic, right? When they made those masks, when they were impregnated with the ostrich antibodies. Yeah,
130 million masks the scam guy sold.
Yeah, something like that. Like not 130 million, but 1.3 million of them or something. So he made a few dollars off that. And then
so this seems more like a merch site than a health site.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and what's
interesting,
And what's the life-saving research they've done so far? What has it produced? Hair growth formula with ostrich antibodies you smear in your scalp. Spray this stuff up your nose. It'll prevent COVID because it's got ostrich antibodies in it. They put it in nutraceuticals so they don't have to get Food and Drug Administration approval or a drug identification number. It's like a nutraceutical, so they put it in lozenges. But that's not like you're going to inject that into, like you're eating it, right? And then the again, no actual verified studies to prove that any of these products actually work. But you have to dig down and look at this stuff to really get to the nitty-gritty of it, to understand that maybe the life-saving research they've been doing isn't so groundbreaking after all.
Yeah. Well, Rick, can you pull up how much money have they raised now in these different Go Send Me? And then that new girl, they're directing people to give her money too.
Yeah, so
wonder
this is
how
about
much
5 different websites now, John, and I can tell you that they've stopped posting updates on the main website, where at last count it was 123,000 on that one website alone, and they've stopped updating it because I don't think they want us to know or they're just
Of course
not.
they don't.
Yeah. And that was
'Cause
like weeks ago. They
Rick,
stopped updating it. Yeah, go ahead.
it's not all about the money though, right? Right?
It's about politics. It's about the money for
Yeah.
sure, but it's also about the politics. This is about challenging the
Yeah.
federal government, undermining the authority of the government, challenging the sovereignty of the government. And this all plays into, frankly, Canada and the 51st state rhetoric, because the more they can show that the government of Canada is overreaching, that and ultimately they don't have any authority anyway. It's like Canada isn't a real country. It's a you know, they're abusing people and they don't really have any authority because they're not real. And this is what it's about.
You know what?
And this all ties right back to your show on that guy that was interfering in the freedom. Remember the guy from the state?
Yes,
All
General
this
Valley.
ties
It
all
absolutely
that.
does tie back into that. It's all part of an ongoing
yeah.
campaign. Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put the
You know
twigs
what?
under the fire.
I can see the problem the same way that while you had the convoy, you had Tucker Carlson and so on asking, you know, if you want to help you to get rid of the government, we can help you out because, you know, we are the U.S. government. So, I mean, it all goes to the same messaging.
It is. And then we have now RFK Jr. sending the letter. Like, honestly, John, you're absolutely right on the money. What business is it of his, other than if you want to collaborate, we can collaborate, and we should have been all along, but you guys pulled away and now suddenly you want to collaborate again. And here's the other thing. We know that facility out there does not meet biosecurity level 2 or 3. And it's not an appropriate facility to be conducting the kind of research that involves injecting birds to produce with these antigens, these synthetic antigens to produce these immune responses. And so it's going to take money, a lot of money, to actually set up a proper biosecurity lab in order to conduct research with these birds. Is RFK Jr. going to put up the funds? Is the U.S. government going to fund this?
But Rick, did you hear the side effects? The mother talked about her 13-year-old daughter that's going to school, has to have medication and 5 trained people at school in case she has a seizure. And this mother has the audacity, she's a mother from hell, to bring her daughter out to a quarantined facility with a sick girl.
Oh my God. Listen,
I mean, come on
yeah,
here.
John.
That's respectable parenting, eh?
It just blows my.
I thought about that too.
She had blue lips. She was suffocating, suffering, and that's how sick she was. Do you know what the mortality rate for human beings is if they contract H5N1? You've got a 50-50 chance of living. 50% of the people who get it die. In fact, it's actually higher than 50%. It's about 52, 53%. I've been looking at this stuff up. That's how serious this is.
Like John said, if your daughter's gone through this already, why would you take her to a place like that when her immune system has already been attacked to run the risk again? There's no parenting skill. None.
I mean, no, that's cruel, I think, to a certain extent.
Yeah. I mean, if you watched your daughter in bed, close to death, you would do anything not to go near that situation again. But she's literally done that. She's literally taken her daughter there.
Isabel, they could have easily done a Zoom call with this daughter and still put forward their plight to help the girl out. But she supposedly is on heavy duty medication, 5 professionally trained people at her school in case she has a seizure. They could have done this on a safe Zoom call and not put that girl in harm's way to possibly be infected again. I mean, this is the Joan Crawford mother from hell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that tells you right there that this girl is high risk and probably will be for the rest of her life.
And look, she can barely speak. It damaged her throat. And I get that they feel bad for the birds or whatever. But I have to wonder when you see your daughter like that, and then you're like, you're really going to come out there and say, save these birds? Like,
no,
all 400
no.
of them.
And I've seen my daughter in that situation where she was close to death in her mid-20s. And let me tell you, I did a song and dance because they didn't seem to be helping her. And it wasn't until I threatened the medical society that I was going to remove her from the hospital and transport her somewhere else that they actually did something. If my daughter was in that situation again, I would do the dance from hell to save my daughter. I would not put her in a situation like that again. And that just gives me goosebumps looking at this girl standing there and talking. Like, did she actually want to go there, or did the mother bring her there?
It's child
And if the mother
abuse.
did that, that's pathetic. That's not parenting.
It's child abuse, and it's all about the money. The whole thing's a big scam, carnival scam to me. I'm sorry.
It makes me wonder, did they promise her so much to bring her daughter there?
Well, they're certainly helping her with fundraisers, and you know, with the emotion driving this, the money is flowing, right? So who knows how much there is going to roll in now for these folks. And I don't have anything against helping people in need, but again, money influences what people say.
It's a total photo op.
They say money is the root of all evil.
It's a total photo op scam. That's why they brought her there. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and they'll put that worldwide. And it was a total photo op scam carnival show.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Rick can tell you, a good story always sell good if you present it right.
Never let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's what they say.
Yep. Yeah, but this has gone. Now, I mean, they're getting what they want, right? They're getting the publicity. And I can just imagine the people that are out there that are not agreeing with this, that live beside these people. This tension's getting to the point where they're probably fearful because they know these activists are looking for a fight. We all see that coming.
Well, it's a powder keg. It's a dynamite powder keg just waiting for a match to light it. And I sure have a lot of respect for those RCMP officers going in there to try and keep the peace. And I just think this thing's a ticking time bomb, folks.
Well, you know, I think the authorities honestly have been exhibiting extreme restraint, patience, and this shows honestly that we do not live in an authoritarian, totalitarian state. Because if we did, they just roll in there, bust their heads, they wouldn't care. They throw them all in the back of a paddy wagon and take them away, and then they just do what they're going to do. But we haven't done that. We've allowed the court system to kick in. We've given them due process. We've respected the property rights of the farm owners. We've allowed this to drag on now for almost 6 months. So don't tell me that they're not being given an opportunity to make their case. And now you've got this protest on top. You've got protesters there, maybe not completely crossing the line into illegal activity, but I'll tell you that they are inciting, how can I put this, resistance, maybe not violence right overtly, but they're inciting people to come out to resist. It's very close to what's the word?
Well, they're right on the line, Rick.
Obstruction.
They're right on the line.
They're almost at the point of inciting obstruction of justice.
Yeah, true.
Right.
And I mean, anybody with a unsane mind would take the resistance stance as anything you want. So if somebody wants to bring something and try to, alleviate some violence there and shoot on people, well, you're going to get the powder keg going blown up. So that's no good.
Yeah. But where were these, Rick, where were these
It's only going to take one unstable person, just one.
That's it. one unstable person.
They keep posting. We keep seeing social media posts on their social media pages where people are calling for violence, and then they keep deleting those posts, and then they go online and they say, "We got to. Everybody needs to remain peaceful. You know, we're all about peace here, peace and love." And then there are more posts where people are calling for violence, like because the rhetoric that they're using is, it's just getting people jacked up.
Yeah.
They're murdering the birds. It's contract killers. You know, this is the language that is.
Yeah. 1 minute they're saying peace and love, and then the next thing is these people that are going to come and do this are not human.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So where's the peace and love?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
We
We're all sitting here. We're watching a train wreck in motion because this is not going to end well. It you know, nobody is going to be happy. And I just like what's the next step? You know, are birds tested, or is it at the stage now where they can just go in? Like, how long is this? There's a fine line between process and just keeping something going. And I'm not trying to be mean to birds.
Yeah, nobody wants to see the birds die. But
Rick, these 69 birds that had died previously, were they properly disposed of in a pit with lime on them and then incinerated?
I don't
like
know.
Cattle guys do in Alberta? Like were they just
nobody knows, John.
Well, isn't that a bit of a mystery, guys?
Yeah.
It
is. But you know what I can tell you too? There's another consequences to all that. I mean, you're weaponizing protesting and basically what is civil unrest at a certain extent. So what's gonna happen is that soon we ain't gonna be able to do protests for any reason if there's some health issues or some health crisis or whatever the crisis it is. At some point, the government will say no more because it's getting to a weaponized version of anti-governmentship. So that's sad.
Well, and Rick, it's a wonder they haven't got the World Economic Forum involved in this.
Well, all I know is that they do appear on that website on the WEF website with Dr. Sakamoto's work promoting it, and then they've backtracked on that at the farm and saying, "Oh no, we're not involved with any of that. No, that's not us. That's not our work. No, that's all." Yeah. But meanwhile, they told us in the interview that they are involved, obviously. And then I said last night, if you're not involved in that research, then what research were you involved with? Show me the studies. What else?
Yes, because she stated herself that they were in on that because they were helping him with the math.
Yep.
So you can't tell me I don't know anything about the World Economic Forum because okay.
Yeah, they're changing their story. And I'm sorry, but I'm also seeing some of these live streamers, either they're completely ignorant or stupid, or they're lying. So, for instance, Rebel Media, Sheila Gunn Reid, somebody sent me a link overnight. I click on it. It's a Rebel report. First word, the very first words out of Sheila Gunn Reid's mouth are, they are not testing. I'm paraphrasing, but she says they're not doing any testing on the ostriches, only on the eggs. No, they're injecting the birds. I don't know. I guess if you really want to split hairs, you could say that the research is being done on the eggs because they're extracting the antibodies from the eggs. But in order to get the antibodies produced in the eggs, you have to inject the birds with the synthetic pseudovirus antigen, which stimulates the immune system, which creates the antibodies both first in the blood of the ostrich and then in the eggs. So yeah, they're absolutely experimenting on the birds.
Yeah, because you're not injecting the egg through the shell.
So don't play word games because it's dangerous. And it destroys your credibility. Who's lying now? They say, don't listen to the mainstream media. All they do is lie. And what am I watching going on here right now with all these alternative media people? I'm seeing a lot of lying going on. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, it's straight up lying, selective, facts, selective omission of information to generate a lie.
Yep. Yep. Like I said, like they were saying before too, I'm still curious as to, John said it, where and when were these other birds disposed of? And if it was done quietly, why? Is it on their land?
I don't know. I just don't think that there's been much reporting on that. I don't think that there's anything sinister there. The CFIA would have been involved at that point, because over the course, like, it took a long time before it was even reported. It was an anonymous, that's the other thing, an anonymous person called in to the CFIA to tell them that they had all these birds dying on the farm. It didn't come from the farm itself, and they have a duty to report, and they didn't report it.
And that's what I'm saying. It was all kept secret. Why?
Yeah. Why?
Because they knew, and they didn't want the word out.
Yeah, maybe.
So they could keep everything secret. If you're above board and you're doing something honestly, you're open about what you're doing. You're answering questions, and you're not saying, oh, don't believe the lies. Don't believe this over here. Just believe us. And that's what they're saying. Just believe us. Well, you're not telling the truth. So.
Yeah.
Doesn't smell good, eh?
Huh?
This story doesn't smell good.
No, not at all. Smells like an old pair of gym socks.
Well, guys, I think down the road, this is going to be, the truth is going to come out. It's going to be pretty bad and ugly, and it's going to be exposed for a scam, a financial scam. And these owners of this farm, they may possibly be brought up on fraud charges down the road for scamming people. I don't know.
You would think.
Yeah, that's far-fetched, my friend, but could be. We don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, they might just receive the cash of the government for the disposal of the 400 resting bird, well, -1, because yesterday somebody have shot another one. And you'll have basically to either start back or just, turn the lock in and basically close everything. That's either side.
Yeah. Sorry, Dragon.
And Rick, I got to say, I'm not a CBT fan. We talked earlier. CBC has done a couple of reports on this farm, and actually their reporting is very similar to yours, very down the middle of the road on an investigative side. And I ain't no fan of CBT, but I do have to tip my hat to them on this one. They've been on the money with you.
Yeah, I haven't really watched much of their stuff, but I did see this with Mocha Burzragan. This is the clip I was going to try to run earlier. Just listen to what he says here about police
ground, where
and his reporting
they
out
get too
there.
emotional, or they allow feelings to get in the way of their, to achieve successful good journalism. Good journalism is being grounded, calm, respectful, curious, and unbiased, and being fair. And this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to be fair, and I just recorded a segment regarding our CMP's conduct, which is very disappointing.
Please share that with our audience, because when you shared it with me, it made a lot of sense.
Well, I've been covering Khalistan extremism all across Canada and internationally, and our CMP has never released a statement about their conduct as they have done about this group of people last night. And the statement shared largely by the media was that the RCMP stated, "We are monitoring this protest to ensure no criminal behavior." And that basically painted the picture last night that, what's going on over here? It created a picture of suspicion about the group of people here, painting them as dangerous, as people that should be monitored. Whereas there are mostly women and children here, there are mostly families in here, and I have not seen any fringe elements. And it was highly irresponsible for our CMP higher up to make such a statement to the media, and especially when it seems to be false. They don't seem to be monitoring any criminal behavior, because if they were monitoring, they should have caught the guy last night who came in and apparently shot an ostrich dead.
Yeah.
They should have caught him if they were monitoring for criminal behavior. So that didn't happen. So they are either not monitoring or they are looking for certain criminal behavior. And this is not the first time this family has lost a bird, you know, apparently shot dead. And the investigations are ongoing, but it appears that the birds are being shot dead. And if the RCMP is monitoring, how is this possible? How is this possible? Maybe they're not monitoring. Maybe they just wanted to paint a bad picture about the movement here.
Oh.
I can't speak to the individual.
I'm going to stop there and just flip this around because, see, this is spin. And that's, you see, it depends on how you look at it, right? If you have to remember that the protesters have surrounded this farm, they have security in place all around the farm, even on in locations off-site where RCMP, we know they have surveillance in places where the RCMP have vehicles, so they have lots of ample warning, because I've watched social media posts where they've talked about it a little bit, so you can figure out that they're monitoring police to see what the police are doing. They have people all around the farm with their phones ready and cameras ready all the time in various locations. So why didn't they catch the person who shot the ostrich, or the two people that shot the ostrich? Because they've got surveillance of their own, security. They've got the whole place secured. And yet somebody managed to get on to the farm and shoot the bird. Then they turn around and say, we want police to get involved, but they don't care. They why aren't they doing something to catch the shooter?
Yeah, but
So
Rick,
then,
did you ever think maybe they've shot them themselves to create more controversy?
That is
I'm
always
not
a
being a
possibility.
conspiracy guy. It is a possibility. And this young gentleman could spend his time much better sitting in journalism school. Sorry, bro.
And so
Yeah.
he's painting this picture of, but then when the police come out with a statement and say that they are monitoring the protest to make sure that there's no criminal activity, which is what they've demanded of police, then they turn around and say, well, that just shows that that they're biased and they're just trying to paint a bad picture of us by saying that they're monitoring a protest for criminal activity. But there was criminal activity because a bird got shot. So how are they supposed to monitor if they don't monitor? It's just double speak, and people are eating it up. It's BS.
Oh, yeah. It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. Straight up gaslighting.
Again, if they were really genuinely concerned about the welfare of the birds, if they were genuinely concerned about the welfare of the people, and they would welcome the presence of police, they would welcome the surveillance, they would welcome the monitoring. They'd say, thank you, RCMP, for keeping an eye on this place. We don't want any criminal activity here. Please keep us safe, which is the first primary responsibility and focus of police agencies across Canada. Public safety, not to go in and bust heads, not to go in and start arresting people willy-nilly. That's not what police do. It's about public safety. That's always paramount for policing services. That's what's going on here. That's why this whole thing has been delayed for 6 months. And during this protest, police have not moved in. They've sent in a liaison officer. It's gone on for many weeks. They're talking to the protesters. They're trying to deal with this in a way where there isn't any arrests, where there isn't a confrontation. They're letting it linger. They're letting it go on because of tolerance.
Yeah, because I've seen the videos with the cops there.
Yeah.
And it's a very organized, very calm conversation from both sides. But then you got this guy portraying that they're not.
Yeah, and it's not just him. It's the all of them, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's their narrative, Rick. That's their narrative.
Yeah. And you would think, okay, you'd welcome the police because you don't know what kind of riffraff going to go there. Whether you invite these people there or not, just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
And I
You
know,
would want
I know that
protection.
I know that they have a convicted cocaine dealer there. I've seen their list
Mhm.
of rules for the camp. No hard drugs. There are children around, right? Why do you even have to tell people that? Because there might be some people who, might bring that
Yeah.
stuff. So they've got that. I think it was rule number 2 or number 3. Just,
Yeah.
come on. It's just
Well, and
Yeah, but
guys,
then-
you're in homegrown wacky tobacco country out there. BC's finest marijuana. You want that in a marijuana cookie or a brownie or
So I'm just
Hey, more talk of these birds, and I'll be asking for brownies.
yeah, and then in the long run, if they get their way, this will set a precedent. It will undermine the government's ability to handle or deal with any of these bird flu outbreaks, and it's going to spread. It'll spread in unprecedented ways, and if it mutates, and it already has been mutating, and it spreads to humans. The previous pandemic with COVID, that's nothing. The mortality rate for COVID in the initial wave was around 3 or 4%. This is 53%.
Yep.
53% of people who get it die, not 3 to 4 or 5 at the most. That was COVID. This 53%.
You know what, Rick? If you look at it, and I did actually, and this pandemic of H5N1, if I can put it this way, been around since 2020 and even 2019. So basically, it's been around even while COVID was there, and it was basically evolving since. So it's been like 5 years already, and more. So look it up, guys. If you do your math, you could probably see that the problem has been longer lasting for too long.
Also, the idea that RFK Jr. has and that these folks have that we should just let the virus run its course, essentially, is cruel. Do you know why? Because of what it does to the animals. If you just let the animals die from the virus, it's cruel. I've been looking it up, and okay, here's how it progresses in chickens. First, you get it, and in the first 2 days, the virus primarily targets cells in the respiratory tract and gastrointestinal tract. It once inside, it replicates rapidly. It releases new virulins within hours. I'm just reading from the list here. Its high pathogenicity stems from a polybasic cleavage site, blah, blah, blah. In other words, it rips through the chicken and all the birds pretty quickly. It spreads like wildfire. And then in 2 to 4 days, it gets into the bloodstream, infects cells lining blood vessels and multiple organs, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, the heart, and the brain. Remember what they said about their dog, that girl? The dog had a swollen brain. It causes sort of an encephalitis type reaction. And then it sets off this cytokine storm, which causes widespread inflammation all through the body, tissue damage, immune system dysfunction, and then it starts to accelerate organ failure. You get severe coughing, sneezing, labored breathing, lung inflammation, fluid buildup. You can't breathe. And then you get swollen heads in these birds. They get this blue-purple discoloration, which is what the girl had in her lips. And then you get gastrointestinal problems, like really severe diarrhea in the chickens filled with blood. They start to bleed to death internally. And within 3 to 7 days, it just gets really distressing. Brain inflammation, seizures, disorientation. The birds start doing this with their heads because of the brain damage. They suffer vascular damage, hemorrhaging, head and limbs. The tissue in them becomes inflamed. All the organs become inflamed, the liver, the kidneys. They become, it's very painful all through their bodies. You then get lung inflammation, making breathing extremely labored. So the chickens, the birds, whatever it is, they can't breathe. They start to suffocate to death.
Yep.
They get very weak. It's cruel. And so this happens over 3 to 7 days. You know, the lucky ones go quick. The unlucky ones can linger for as much as a week, suffer for a week. It's much better to just put them down.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't do animal suffering, not a chance. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong.
And in chickens, the mortality rate is close to 100%. It's over 90% of all the chickens that come into contact with it will die. A slow, painful death. That's what was going on at that farm, by the way. Those 69 birds, that was a month of death. That happened over the course of a month where the birds were
and they were okay knowing that this is what their birds had, and it was okay for their birds to just die, suffer and die.
69 times. You're talking like a couple of birds a day.
Yeah.
Every day for about a month. And they didn't report it. It came from an anonymous source that brought the CFIA.
But you remember what they said. They didn't know that the birds were sick. But now they can look at their birds and they can know that their birds are sick or healthy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't have it both ways, but that's what they want.
No.
They got a keen eyes.
Yeah.
If anybody else wants to call in, you can at 1-647-734-4220. Numbers on the bottom of the screen. Just punch in that PIN number, 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Again, it's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. If anybody else would like to join tonight. Back to you guys.
I mean, I have 2 dogs. You guys know that. And if one of my dogs is suffering to the point that I cannot medically fix it from the vet, I'm not going to keep that dog because I don't want to lose it. I'm going to do the best for that dog and alleviate its suffering. And it's going to rip my heart out, but it's for the better of the animal. You don't allow something you love to suffer if you can help in any way.
Yeah. That's
more cruel than what they're putting out there right now. Oh, it's okay, we're good because we let them die. But don't come in and call them because, that's cruel. Well, but you're saving humanity. You're saving like that 13-year-old girl that you keep pushing up front. Like this doesn't make sense.
That's so abhorrent to me. Words cannot express that I could legally say on this program how I felt seeing that that poor girl, because and anybody would know, I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 10, 20, or 50 or 100 years old. But, when you're not feeling good, you're not at your best. And I am, and like, look at it this way too. Her mother is her caregiver. Who's going to upset their caregiver? What a quandary,
Yeah.
Something else I thought about, they say that these birds are very unique and they need to do research into antibodies. This kind of work is already being done. All right. And so here's an article from the BC Center for Disease Control, British Columbia, right? And they're talking right here. BC Center for Disease Control received new research funding to better understand how the avian influenza virus changes as it spreads in animals and people, to prepare tools that can be rolled out to support the province's response to the threat. And it goes on down here. And they talk very specifically about antibody research that they're already doing at like bona fide research facilities that are properly secured with actual doctors and scientists. And not to say that, there isn't some legitimacy to some of the stuff that they've been doing, but you've got an open air biolab there. Doesn't meet the biosecurity level standards that it doesn't appear to anyway, to me. Prove me wrong. I don't know, but the work's already being done.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
doing that in an open field is not a contained research.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a controlled
But
group.
here's a question too. Like, if they keep going on about how none of their birds are sick. Well, I would like to know how many birds are carriers.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a
You
very
know.
good point, Katie, because that is what makes this dangerous. Is ostriches are more resilient, better able to survive the bird flu, but they're also more efficient carriers of the disease and may not exhibit symptoms. They are efficient asymptomatic carriers of the disease. So that's why they're dangerous to be left alive.
And isn't that what we were saying the other night? Because she was in there walking through the pen when they were literally ripping her sweater off her, but they were so friendly, right?
Uh-huh.
And she was walking in amongst them. Now she's out walking around the people and near that young girl.
And if she's in that pen and she keeps going in that pen, she's not wearing personal protective equipment or anything like that. They don't seem to be concerned, and that's their view, but there is a quarantine order in place, and I'm pretty sure that they're supposed to be taking taking it more seriously. There's supposed to be protocols in place.
Yeah, because I thought they were quarantined.
I don't think they are. Somebody's back here. Who just joined?
Oh.
Hello. New caller.
Hi, Rick. It's Lori. How you doing?
Great. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm not bad. Yourself?
Well, worried. I don't want another pandemic. I don't want to get locked down. And we've got
hi everybody. Just one point that I wanted to make was that the area that I live in here, we've got several fellas that raise beef, and they take a lot of pride in the product that they raise and they sell off. And to me, the people that own this farm out there, they lost all their credibility when they started injecting these birds. And once they turned them into a chemistry set, then to me that tells me that they have it's a money-making thing. Sure, I understand maybe they were desperate and looking for some way to get out, but that's certainly not, to me, that's not what you do if you're in the business of putting food on the table, whether it's beef or whether it's ostrich meat.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you, Lori.
Yeah.
Extremely good point.
And, I didn't see any reference to that in the letter from RFK Jr. to the CFIA. No mention of any of that.
Interesting.
No.
So even there, you're not getting the full story. There, he's either ignorant, therefore unaware, because he hasn't been fully informed, which it's his duty to be fully informed, given his position. He should know, or he's lying through omission. In either case, he should resign. He has no business holding that position because he's putting public health and safety in jeopardy, and it's his job to protect people, to keep the public safe, to protect public health, and he's in breach of his duty. He should resign. That's how serious what he's done here. He's politicized a public health issue in a way that is actually jeopardizing public health.
Yeah.
He certainly doesn't have any business reaching across the border and getting into our business.
Not
we certainly have our differences up here, but I think the proper procedure is we'll settle it amongst ourselves and we'll go on. That's what Canada's all about.
Yeah. And if you want to collaborate,
we don't need any help.
But yeah,
you don't go from one country to another and tell them how to run their country.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it was truly an issue of science, if he was truly interested in collaboration, he didn't have to make that letter public. He could have done that, behind the scenes. And then if they come to some agreement where they're going to work together on a project, then do a joint statement and say, hey, we're working on this thing together. Isn't this great? But no, he didn't do that. He got involved in the protest before he even spoke to the CFIA, then writes the letter, then makes sure it goes public to
protest. He's part of the protest.
Yep. Instead of saying we're collaborating on this and trying to find the reasoning, no, he's become part of it.
Yeah.
Well,
each
possibly
side has
maybe he
dug
would
in.
like to arrange to have the ostriches shipped as they are to wherever he would like to have them, and he can do whatever he likes with them there.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
They might
I
look
don't
cute
think he
running
would jump
around on
on
the front
that.
lawn of the White House.
Yeah.
Give an ostrich to RFK, and he's going to put it on a bike.
Yes.
Man.
Well, I guess they
Good
can
one,
always
Dragon.
dump them off in Central Park too if they they don't find another spot for them.
Yeah, the other thing is, do they really need 400 of these ostriches to conduct this research? For like 398 now, I guess.
Yeah.
Why do you need that
Wouldn't you
many
only
of them?
need one or two?
But just one comment on that, Rick. We were talking about the 400 ostriches. I believe, and this is something that I just heard locally, is that they hold the chicken farms down to 250,000 chickens in Canada, rather than let them get to too big a size.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen locally here where I would guess it was around 2 years ago where the concession roads were closed around one of the larger, I guess larger chicken producers, and we could see off in the distance the guys walking around in the white suits and doing whatever they were doing, but they closed the roads. They closed the roads probably within a mile of the farm for sure.
Could you imagine if this protest is successful and it sets a precedent for testing every bird? Imagine what we would have to go through to test every chicken now that comes down with avian flu. Like we're talking tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of chickens over time. Like it would
One by
bankrupt our
one.
society. We couldn't afford it.
Well, as the girls were talking earlier, both Katie and Isabel there, I'm an avid waterfowler. I love to shoot geese and ducks in the fall. Exactly the same as them. I make sure that I use everything that I possibly can off of those birds. But I certainly don't have any fear of bird flu from what I consume. So,
yeah, this argument too, Lori, maybe you want to comment on this. They keep saying, well, why don't they cull the wild birds? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You can't, it's not possible. Because you can't, and it's not even a valid argument in my view, because the wild birds.
How are they planning on doing that, Rick? Like with Trump's dome? Like,
oh no, maybe
is that the new way of killing off wildlife? Like it's ridiculous.
It could be, but the wildlife doesn't generally come into contact with human beings too much. So that's minimal risk there. Birds fly away from people to get away from us, right? So that's not the big issue. Domesticated birds, you have staff, like farm staff, people handling them, coming into contact with them all the time. It's different. Yeah. And to suggest that, well, you might as well just let it rip through the farms because you can't kill all the wild birds. I just don't think it's a valid argument. What do you guys think?
I think there's no way that you can know if a wild duck or any other wild animal is infected with whatsoever. How can you find that out? You're going to look at every little animal that can critter around here? No, I don't think so.
No.
Well,
if
we just
nets
look out the
catching
window
them.
now and see how many Canada geese we have flying around, and there certainly is a ton of them, and where I am here in Eastern Ontario, I've got quite a migration of snow geese that come through in the spring and the fall. And I mean, when you're seeing all of those birds going through, it's phenomenal. So,
Well, I know where I used to live in London. There was a courtyard. That courtyard was full with over 100 geese.
yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, they honked early in the morning. It would get you up early, but yeah, they
I'll
they
take
picked
that or a
certain areas.
rooster.
You know, it's like, wow. But they knew when it was hunting season, right? They would only come in when it wasn't hunting season. But yeah, you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
poor things.
can you
But
imagine
no,
trying to chase?
you've got a huge a point there, Rick. I mean, there's no way we're going to control the birds that are out there in the wild. There's just too many of them, and they probably have, within their population, they have such a low percentage of infected birds. So
yeah, and if they're concerned about, you know, herd immunity developing, well, that's where it would be best to let it develop, is in the wild. Let the wild birds
Is in the wild.
develop those herd immunity qualities, and then over time, I guess you can study that. But in the farms,
Or even some wild animals have the instinct that when they're sick, how to make themselves better. I'm not saying it would work with the bird flu, but I mean, I watch my dog, and when my dog's stomach is upset, he'll go and pick certain grass in the backyard.
Yes.
He'll eat that, enough of it, until he literally throws up, and then he's done. So animals do have an instinct on how to make themselves better. Not saying it would work with the bird flu, but there's no way you could go out and get every single wild bird.
no.
Like I could just imagine people, I'm envisioning people running through the bush in hazmat suits trying to get all these birds.
It's a stupid thing, I think, that people say. Somebody else just joined the call. Who's there?
Hi, Rick. It's Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just weighed in on that. I haven't watched the whole beginning of the show.
Okay.
But okay, so these has a vet gone in and checked these birds out at all?
Well, when all the birds were dying, they did go in and I believe it was 23 samples from 2 carcasses that they took, then took it back to a lab. You get 69 dead birds. You've got confirmation of the virus being present, and that was the testing that was done. Then, of course, the farm started to take legal action to delay everything, and it's been in limbo since then, after the Cull order was issued. So it's dragged on for over 5 months.
Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking about is if a veterinarian comes in and says that your animal, whatever kind of animal that you have, when a veterinarian comes in and says this animal is sick, it needs to be put down, and you refuse to have it put down, you will get charged for refusing. You will get the SPCA then steps in. I don't know if that works with ostrich farms, but with the domestic animals, if a veterinarian tells you this animal is suffering, it needs to be put down, and you refuse, you will be charged. They have no choice. They have to report you to the SPCA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've gone through it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'm pretty sure that's in BC. I was told it was my cat, and I begged them, just keep her overnight, and see what more. And they said there's nothing more you can do. She has to be put down. And if you don't allow us to put her down, we have to report you to the SPCA. So I'm just wondering, has a vet gone in and checked these ostriches out and said, these birds they're sick and they're suffering and they need to be put down.
Well, at this point,
Now, if
they're not exhibiting symptoms at this point.
Okay.
But the legal case, at the beginning, the reason it was delayed was because of the stay order that was issued from the legal challenge, and then it's dragged on since then.
Like if they're not sick or suffering, leave them alone.
Except that, Maureen, it's more complicated than that, because they can be sick and not exhibit symptoms. They can be carrying the virus and not exhibit symptoms. Ostriches do not have the mortality rate that chickens have. Chickens, it'll kill an entire flock. Ostriches are more resilient and can survive, but they are also more efficient carriers. In addition to that, because the Cull order was issued, if this sets a legal precedent, if these people are allowed to challenge the government and their authority to come in and execute Cull orders like this, to move forward with them, it sets a legal precedent. And then every farmer can then point to this case potentially and say, no, CFIA, no Canadian government, you can't come onto my farm. I'm not going to let you kill my birds, even if a bird flu outbreak, or not just that, but this would extend to all kinds of different government actions where they're trying to stop the spread of any kind of contagion. It would neuter the government and make it potentially difficult, if not maybe even impossible, for the government to execute programs to keep us safe. So it's not just a health issue, it's a legal issue. And it's hard for people to understand this, but if we allow the government's authority to be undermined here, then we are leaving ourselves vulnerable and open to all kinds of danger in the future, because our government will no longer be able to respond in a way to protect us. It basically neuters the government. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because our legal system is based on legal precedents, right? Once a decision has been made in a court of law, it sets a standard, or it sets an example. And then judges always have to look back and say, well, if an exemption was made for that farm, and then the next farmer comes along and says, I want an exemption too. My birds are special, just like those ones. You have to grant an exemption to that guy. If you start doing it for one, you have to do it for a bunch. And if you do it for a bunch, maybe for all. And then it wouldn't even just be the bird flu. It could be for anything. The CFIA would be neutered, like unable to respond, leaving us vulnerable, which is what basically these people want, because these folks are what I would call agriculture sovereigntists. They are small farmers who are kind of anti-government. They're also anti-government activists. These same people, by the way, during the wildfire season, was last year, the year, whatever year it was, I can't remember. They refused to leave their farm when everybody was being ordered to leave, because it was not safe. And then other people from the region also started bringing all their animals to the farm. Okay? So that they would take care of their animals while everybody else fled the fires. Because these were the people who were like, screw you firefighters, screw you government, we're staying to fight. You know what that mindset was like during the wildfires, even like last year. And I was sitting there saying to people, if they're telling you to leave, leave, because you could die. But they don't trust the government. So they're like, no, they're probably the ones who said it and they're trying to kill us. I'm not saying that's exactly what these people said, but that's what they did, right? Like, this is recorded. There were stories about this exact farm doing that. So this is a mindset. This is what's really at stake here. This is a clash of ideologies. It's a political thing. It's sort of this, and this is why RFK becoming involved in this. He's tied into this. This is a sovereign citizen, sovereign rights issue that they're trying to force. They're trying to undermine the government through this political action, through this protest. It's not about the birds.
Well, Rick, there's always a before and after. And I think this case is a cornerstone case in an awful lot of ways. And it's not going to end up happy. My biggest worry is it's going to end the way the other one did.
Yeah.
You know, to show who's boss. That's what I'm worried about.
The other thing, Maureen, is that these people, just to show you that our government is actually quite generous, tolerant, and compassionate, because they do have a $3,000 per ostrich payout that is possibly available to the farmer. In the United States, I was looking at some of the reports. This is why RFK Jr. is full of crap, okay? Because farmers that go through this down there, in some cases, even with huge chicken operations, they've received payouts like in total of like $2,500 on the U.S. side, $2,500 total. Over here, they're being offered $3,000. They were offered $3,000 per head. Or at least that's what the estimate was for the birds. That's $1.2 million. But because they've chosen instead to defy the authorities, to say, no, we're not going to cull our birds, and the CFIA has to take all these additional actions. You've got all these additional legal fees that are piling up, and it's causing this big spectacle. Yeah, the CFIA has discretion. They don't have to pay them anything because they're being a pain in the butt. Instead of taking the money and then repopulating their herd and cooperating and reporting it up front, which they got a $10,000 fine for, frankly, because they didn't report the outbreak. It took someone anonymously, like a neighbor, saying, all their birds are dying. You need to get down here. They've got a problem. And they didn't do it. You have a duty to report as a farmer. It's legal. You're legally obligated to do that. And they didn't. And then they said, well, we didn't know it was the bird flu. You got 69 dead birds.
Okay, but then how many other ones do they have roaming around? Maybe they're not sick.
Because they're all in an enclosed area, and it's highly contagious. You know statistically that if you have these birds in a close proximity to each other, it rips through these flocks. And so, yes, a high percentage of them may survive, but they carry the disease and they spread it to other creatures. That is also an open air facility. So you have mice, you have rabbits, you have ducks and geese and blue jays flying in and out of there. They come into contact with those birds and they carry it away. What comes in, and they're saying that it was probably ducks that spread it into the pen. And this is supposed to be a secure bio lab where they're conducting research, injecting the birds with this synthetic COVID antigen. So you're supposed to have, from the research that I've seen, at least biosecurity level 2 facilities, which is not open air, and probably for what they were doing, by BSL 3 level biosecurity. And this in no way is that. And yet this is what they were doing on site. And then a bird flies in and infects them. That just shows that the biosecurity measures were not adequate at all, certainly to be doing that kind of research. And this puts everything at risk. And then they're saying, but we're 100 miles away from the nearest poultry operation. Yeah, but if a duck flies in there, those are migratory ducks, and they fly along a route that is, they can go as far as 3,000 miles. So they can spread that disease from Alaska to freaking Mexico. So it's serious. This and Maureen.
No, I get it.
And if it,
I'm actually getting turned off of freaking bird meat.
Oh yeah, I know, it's terrible. I
go into a grocery store now and I look at chicken and no thanks.
And then
but until they're diagnosed.
Go ahead.
Why can't they diagnose them first? And if they're sick, then absolutely destroy them. Well, that's a harsh word, but
yeah,
until they're
well, they did. Because we don't have
okay, the 69 birds, okay, they were sick, so they died, and okay, but wait until these other ones, if they show symptoms, then get rid of them.
No, because you know from the characteristics of the virus that it goes through flocks, especially when they live in close quarters, even in an open air pen. They brush up against each other. This stuff can be transmitted just even through the feathers. If they just brush brush up against each other, you can get it. If a human being just touches one of these birds, or if it gets on the feces, like they're running around in their own bird crap. All right.
Well, why
in
aren't the
pen.
people that raise it? Why aren't the people that are raising them, that touch them every day, let them peck at them, showed any symptoms?
They have. Well, they didn't show symptoms, but they've been tested, and there was a court document that shows that they've tested positive for exposure to the bird flu. They haven't shown symptoms either, but they've apparently been exposed to it, and that's in the court document I showed last night.
Yeah, I didn't see it last night.
That's
Sorry.
the virus can live on glass surfaces for like a month. It's once it's in the facility, they're supposed to be washing down every car, sanitizing everything, washing off the wheels. They're supposed to be wearing protective gear when they go in that pen, and they're not. There's a quarantine order in place, and they keep saying publicly that they're following all the rules. But when I'm looking at the videos that they're posting, they're walking around in the pen, no gloves on, no nothing, and they're touching the birds. Not all.
So why aren't they sick? Why aren't they sick then?
Because it doesn't always transmit to people, but it can. You see, it's
so that
And what if you're immune compromised and you don't know that other person is a carrier that's been in that pen, and now your life is at risk, like that young 13-year-old?
See, it's like there have been some cases. I think there's 69 in the States where 69 people have been infected because it's mutated in a way that it can now jump from an animal to a human. But not every variant can do that. They're trying to mitigate the spread in order to buy us time so the researchers can develop more effective treatments and vaccines. And they do have some vaccines, but they're not entirely effective, I don't think. So this is a problem. And because, like I said, this is so serious, Maureen. When people do become infected, about half of all the people die. Not like COVID, where it was like 3%, 2%, 4%, depending on which variant. That's what COVID was. Can you imagine what's going to happen to our world, to our society, if this spreads among humans? And look at the suffering that would be inflicted upon people. Half the population can die. Half.
So you're agreeing with the culling?
100%. Should have happened a long time ago.
Wow.
Me too.
I'm sorry. Like, I don't want it to happen, but it needs to happen. Not only for scientific reasons, but also for legal reasons. You can't let these people undermine the authority of the government, because if they set this legal precedent here, we are then all helpless. We are vulnerable. Everything then just gets to rip. Every farmer gets to do their own thing. It creates anarchy and chaos in our society. It actually destroys the very foundation of our democracy and our legal system. These people say it's authoritarian overreach. No, it isn't. These people are trying to create chaos. If there is another pandemic, it will be because of these people. These are the people who are putting us at risk, not the government. This is the twisted, upside down world that they're living in. They're putting us all at risk.
No, I'm not blaming the government. The government's got nothing. I'm not blaming the government by any means.
They are.
Yeah.
It's all the government's fault all the time. No, it's because you're not following the rules. You're hiding things. You're doing things behind people's backs. You're not reporting when you've got a bird flu outbreak. You're trying to hide it. That means that it spreads. It's disrespectful. It also puts the poultry industry in jeopardy. It puts every other farm operation in jeopardy. If it spreads too far, other countries won't accept our poultry exports anymore. It shuts the whole industry down. Billions of dollars out of the economy. And then also billions more to compensate and prop up the people who are then suffering financially because their farm operations are no longer viable. It destroys our society. And I'm sorry.
So why haven't they done it now? Why are they prolonging it? Just go in and do it then.
Because we are a tolerant and not an authoritarian society. We do have a democracy. We do respect people's rights. and property rights. And that's what Canada is. That's why you can protest and not end up in jail. That's why the cops haven't gone in there to beat these heads in and just throw them all in the paddy wagon. But these people,
but you're worried about everybody
for freedom, are actually the opposite.
Yeah, well, if everyone's worried about getting spread to humans, then go in and call them. Like
they want to. They've been trying to, but the farmers are using the legal system to stall. The protesters are now weaponizing bouncy castles, words like freedom and love.
No,
right?
They should just go in there and say we're calling them and call it a day.
Well,
you can bring all the bouncy castles you want and all the hot dog stands and get her done.
They're ready for a standoff there, though, Maureen. That's what all the protesters are there for, and that's what it appears they're looking for is this photo op, this confrontation, a fight with the police, so that they can get the images and video of all the protesters being beaten and arrested.
I get that.
You know what?
But
I want to draw attention. I'm sorry. I just want to draw attention real quick to the global mails from 21st of 2025 of May. If you scroll down, you're gonna see a beautiful picture of a lady called Carrie Lee, which as you look into the picture, you'll see that she's from the Freedom Convoy protest, and you can see on her face the war paint, like a Indian kind of, really fierce little look. And I mean, to me, it doesn't look like someone who's looking peaceful and looking at the police and want to talk or do things properly. So I mean. It's a power kick.
And see, Maureen, it's just like it was at the Freedom Convoy. You have a lot of people who show up thinking they're there doing the right thing, that they're fighting for freedom. They think they're there, in this case, fighting to save these poor, innocent, healthy ostriches, right?
I get that.
And just like at the Freedom Convoy, there were people there with political motives that were manipulating and using those innocent people as pawns, and they get thrown out into the front as cannon fodder, and those are the people who are going to suffer. They're going to be the ones arrested, beaten, and then they're going to face big legal bills at the end of all of this, maybe with no help. Or there's going to be more fundraisers and more photo ops that flow from all of this. But this is the same scenario, and this isn't right, because a lot of those people are being lied to. And that's why when I'm showing people the lies here, I'm getting attacked. Well, stop talking about that. Don't tell anybody. No, I'm going to tell the truth.
Well, I'm not attacking you by any means. But the owners, if this is what the owners need to step up and say, yeah, take responsibility, call my ostriches, and we'll start over, disinfect the whole shebang. So these, what's her name? The two, we don't want to get everybody infected. So they need to bow down and say, okay, if they're in, because who would want to infect everybody, right? So come in, as hard as it's going to be, it's got to be done. But not if they're healthy. That's all I'm saying. All I wanted to know was, did a vet go in and say, yes, they're infected? But now you're saying that, well, it's hard to detect. Okay, me as an owner, I would say, well, then call them, because if you can't detect it, I'm not taking the chance.
See, and it's not just, the other issue is, if you know you have the presence of the virus, you don't really want to test every bird, because the more you test, the more you have human beings coming into contact with the birds, and you risk animal to human infection. So you're increasing the risk to human beings.
These owners aren't infected because it was chewing on her, pecking at her coat. She's touching them. She's feeding them.
As I said, it doesn't always transmit to humans. The bigger issue, two issues. Transmission
I thought that was a
to other
problem.
farms.
Transferring it to humans.
That is
I thought that
an
was
issue.
a problem.
It is a problem. It can mutate, and we don't want that to happen. That's why they stamp the disease out, to stop it from spreading. Like, stop it right there.
So as a responsible farm owner of ostriches should just say, as hard as it's going to be, okay, let's.
But they didn't do that.
Call them.
Yeah, they could have done that easily right from the beginning, and they would have been caught. They would have received compensation. They could have said, okay, we've got 69 dead birds. You've got a test. You say it's bird flu. Definitely 69 dead birds. We got a problem. So if you say that's what it is, yeah, let's get this done and let put them all down humanely. What they do is they gas them, knock them out, and then they euthanize them. And then they would have received likely $3,000 per bird, $1.2 million. They're saying they're worth more. My research suggests that actually it's a lot less, depending on what stage of life you buy the birds at to repopulate. But I think they could have repopulated with brand new stock, younger stock, younger breeding stock, and they could have had a setup to go for decades into the future with younger birds, more robust.
Right.
Instead of these old birds.
That's what I would have done.
But they didn't do that. And I think there are some other reasons why. And it's because of those injections they were giving them, the research the research or the work they were doing with other facilities, and because of this political motivation and the activism that they're involved with. And then there's also on the other side of this, you see, if they can establish this as some unique facility, or these birds are unique, and they can say, yes, these ones have to be studied. Do you know how much money is going to flow into that place for research? This then turns into a whole new cash cow at that point, and it gives them everything that they could ever dream of. It solves all their financial problems. They'll be pumping millions of dollars in there.
Yeah, but under the conditions there, Rick, that these birds have been injected and then raised and then fooled around with, and being open air and no scientific basis behind it, I can't see how anybody that knows anything about anything could come up with any kind of conclusions.
Precisely. It's all bogus. The science that they keep citing is not validated by bona fide, organizations, not universities. It's like, not really. Okay. When you really look at the research, not double peered, not double blind peer reviewed studies, none of that. And so you're quite right, Lori. These birds, in my view, have limited, if any, value. You can't sell them as food anymore because they've been injected and used as lab animals. You can't really say that they're valid for doing research on because they've been exposed to so many variable factors. It's not a controlled group because they've been living in an open air facility, injected with things, exposed to bird flu, God knows what else. So who knows really what's floating around in their bloodstream. When you're doing valid scientific research, you need a very controlled environment, so you know that you're starting with a clean slate, and then you inject things, or you change the conditions in order to see what the result is on the other side as part of your experiment. You start with your hypothesis and you go through the method, right? The scientific method. But what is going on out there is now you have this who knows what in these birds. So of what real research value are they? I don't know. I'm not, just for me, sitting here doing the research I've done, it just doesn't fly. Just like the ostriches. These ostriches don't fly.
Well, I'm just going to say that as a responsible owner of any animal, it's difficult, all this is going on, as difficult as it is, I would get them euthanized.
Yeah.
And like you say, start all over again, right?
Yeah, and they would have been
But
further ahead. Yeah.
well, you see,
Exactly.
here's what they would love to have happen. They would love it if, okay, have all the birds tested, fine. So we'll test all the birds. Let's pretend that 10 of the birds are sick, okay, so they can be culled. Fine, good. Retest the other 390 or whatever is left. Then you have 5 more that are sick. Like, is that going to keep on going? And like, because you can't do anything with the birds, basically what they're saying is they want a lifetime quarantine.
Yeah, and
Now,
then these
the
people,
soil is also affected by this too. So, like, let's say they wanted to sell the farm, well, who's going to buy it? You got to
Right.
scrape the topsoil all over the place, and we won't even go there but cleaning the buildings.
and, and all these people who are upset thinking that, like, what are they thinking? That if they save these birds, they're just going to be treated like pets? No, this is livestock. They will turn them in. They'll just go back into service as lab animals. They'll be injecting them and experimenting on them. And that's not really a very nice life.
No.
So
It is
the
no
bleeding
life.
hearts can just, I'm just, it's my
Who's
mind.
going to
really
play
getting, I'm
Solomon with
really
this
getting
one, eh?
turned off at chicken. I'm really getting turned off poultry altogether.
I'm going to have me a moose steak tomorrow.
That's good for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, look, Rick has made a good point, right? Number one, this farm is a vector of infection, if there is. Number one. And secondly, with all the compound and other viruses or what experiment that they have been experiment on, you don't know what would be the consequences of a ulterior virus mutation by all these things. So, I mean, this could, it can be really dangerous, and things can probably pop up from there and become a new point zero or a ground zero of another pandemic. And you don't want that.
That's right.
So I'm very
I'm
sorry.
I'm just even thinking about the people that live next door and their property values.
Yes.
Living next to this just this jackpot.
Yeah. All these people complaining and crying. How would you like to? These are the same people who are like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not getting vaxxed. I'm not doing this. This isn't real. That isn't real. Like, same people. And now they're down there defending this place. This is the hill to die on. This is crazy. This is exactly what they were protesting against. Now they're protesting for it. And that, like, no, you think the government's trying to kill you and they're planning the next pandemic. Well, you're facilitating it. This is what you're doing.
I mean, can you imagine with what we've heard about going on down there, that it's more like a drunk fest than anything else? The poor neighbors that are around there.
Yeah.
I've heard that too, eh?
I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in the middle of the night.
Well, I live in British Columbia, and even on the news, the only information I've ever seen is what I see on Maverick News. Like, I watch Vancouver News all the time, and nothing has been mentioned about this ever.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not allowed to know.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they want to give it too much attention because that's what they need.
I think
down there.
Yeah, that's odd.
Well, the protesters need attention.
Like EB, the EB hasn't said anything.
Yeah,
I
he
know the
did.
government can't really get involved, but
he did.
You would
he did say he
think
did make
he
a
would say
statement.
something.
He did say something. He said that he wished the CFIA could apply a little more flexibility to these situations. Then they're spinning it on the protest side, saying that that's him supporting them. I don't think he's supporting them. I think he's being a politician, trying to play both sides off against each other, and doesn't want to get the animal lovers upset with him. That's, I think, where
Sitting
he's
right
actually
on the
at.
fence.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But anyway, if they were really responsible owners and this was going on, they need to, like I say, as difficult as it's going to be, just wipe them out and start over.
Yeah. They're
Yeah, because they're not going to lose, really. They're going to be compensated. You know, nobody said they don't start again.
Their feathers are worth something. Their hide, they make belts and wallets.
Yeah,
and
you can't use them for anything because of what they've done with them. They just
that's right,
incinerated. Like you can't use them.
I had an
worthless.
ostrich first.
Worthless. The birds aren't worth anything.
No.
And you know what? At the same time, like I say, I think that what they're trying to do is just to create another Emergency Act 2.0 kind of thing and trying to trigger it to a certain extent. That's probably at the end of the day what they want.
Well, they want to provoke.
Probably.
That's what they're doing. They're trying to provoke. They are.
Yep.
The protesters. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sign off because my phone might die in a minute. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Maureen, and we'll start going around the horn for our final thoughts for the night. Who wants to kick it off?
I'll kick it off. I'm just hoping for a better outcome of this whole thing. And I don't want to see it get blown out of proportion because I can see the tensions rising out there. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. So I wish everybody a good night.
All right. Dragon, your turn.
Well, don't get too paralyzed, and also look at the way people spin stuff and the way that they talk, because that's the way you're going to learn about the techniques used by those people trying to sway your emotion toward probable problem. In the meantime, well, stay positive and stick with us, because we always have some fun at the end of the day.
Okay, who's next?
Yeah, it's Lori here. No, I'll maybe from a little bit of a pragmatic or practical standpoint. If it had been me, I'd have cashed out earlier, and if I was a really dedicated ostrich farmer, I'd be starting up and back in the business as soon as they declared the property was safe to do it again. So,
yeah,
we'll go from there, and we'll just say goodnight.
All right. Well, thank you, Lori. And who else is left?
Oh, we got me.
Okay, go ahead, Kitty.
Yep. Well, I tell you, in as much as I know we'd love to wave a magic wand, we can't do that. So in cases especially like this, my son and I go by the philosophy of it is what it is. We get worried about it, we get upset about it, but if you allow that upset to take over, you're going to end up back in the same place you were when you started getting all worried up about it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we don't care. We just got to keep perspective as to what this is. And I just basically we all got our shit we got to work through, take care of every day and whatnot. And we can't fix everything. We can just do the best we can. And we just have to be content with that.
All right.
That's it.
And one more person, I think, right? Who's still there? Or is that everybody?
Oh, it's Maureen.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll just
one more
say
quickly. Yeah.
Now, I'll just say good night, everyone, and God bless the ostrich.
Okay. I can't top that. I'll see you guys back here 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night on the flip side.
Night, all.
Night. John Boy.
Night, guys.
Take care, all.
Didn't pick this fight, but here it came. Now our own are playing a traitor's game. They sell us out for a tax cut deal. Shake his hand while they rob and steal. They call us blind, they call us weak, but they're the ones on their knees to the thief. Wave our flag while they burn it down, marching to the sound of a tyrant's cry. Patriots, they're bought and sold. Trade our land for American gold. Singing his tune, dancing his way, but they'll cry for Canada when it's too late. but they bow real low, licking his boots while they put on a show. They chant his name, raise their fists up high, while the real ones fight to keep us alive. They don't fight fair, they twist the truth, say they're the future, but they kill the roots. They laugh now, but watch them run when the north wind howls and justice comes. Traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. One day soon, the tide will turn, and traitors pay when the fires burn. No statues raised, no banners flown, just names in dust where the traitors roam. Traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. Shame.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.